Tēnā koutou katoa, just reconvening the Stormwater, Land Drainage and Watercourse Bylaw hearings from Tuesday the 29th of April 2025. And we have available, I'm Councillor Deborah Hassan, the Chair. With me is Councillor Lydia Glidden. We're both the panel. We have with us Alex Ross, Joe Golden and Murray England from council staff, and we also have our legal advisor from Buttle Finley, Mark Odlin. Apologies, Mark. How we're going to go through this bylaw is we're going to go through page by page, and then we're going to actually ask questions under each section that we currently have, so we can tick it off page by page. If we have any questions, I'd appreciate if staff could we could have some clarification from staff. So we will start with page 1, which is basically the Selwyn District Council makes the bylaws pursuant to the Local Government Act, and it mentions about the roles and responsibilities of private stormwater and drainage systems are the responsibility of the landowners they serve. However, the council, while it does not maintain this drain, has a responsibility under the Local Government Act and the Land Drainage Act to make a bylaw to regulate activities that affect the stormwater and land drainage network. So we can tick that one off. The next page is just a table of contents. So we can tick that one off. The next page is the title. Tick. Date of commencement. Now we have had an explanation as to why the date of commencement will be the 1st of June 2025 instead of June 2023. The application of the bylaw, purpose and goals, definitions and interpretations. Have you got any questions on that, Lydia?
Yeah, I do, and some of this is just around the definitions, and so I had pointed out that the discussion around watercourses and the difference with our water race network, and so we refer to some of our water race network as ecological streams, and I just want to be clear that we're not going to encapsulate the ecological streams within our water race network into this bylaw. So whether there needs to be some extra notes underneath drain or watercourse to make that very clear that ecological streams within our water race network are not encapsulated into this bylaw.
Thanks, Lydia. So I can confirm that the intent of the bylaw is not to cover the water race network, and we have a separate bylaw that covers water races. We potentially have an opportunity to make a clarification under the definition of watercourse. So we may wish to consider sort of an exclusion for water races. So our water race bylaw has a definition of water races that are defined under the Local Government Act 2002. So there could be an opportunity there, and I don't know if you wanted to comment on that.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Yes, so I've only looked at this change today, but what I think it does is it makes it clear that where the bylaw refers to watercourse, and it does in a number of places, the water race regime is expressly excluded. So a watercourse does not include a water race, which, as Joe points out, is regulated under a separate bylaw. So I think that makes sense to me. I think it would be useful as we go through just to look at watercourse in context.
Yes.
Because of course that's a superset rather than like a subset of a drain.
Just with definitions and interpretations, and I will bring this up later, erosion and sediment control plans. with regards to the definition, I just want to highlight that because when it comes to erosion and sediment control, I'd like to bring up that not every contractor on a private drain and on land is managed by a contractor. It could be the private individual that actually cleans the drain themselves, because it's not a designated drain. So when we get to that section throughout, I will highlight that definition for more clarity. Any other issues?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so we can tick off and just with regards to definitions, trade waste. I haven't got pages on here, but let's go down to trade waste. We just think there needs to be the word "and" in between water and stormwater.
It's point I.
JJ, so it just clearly understands that stormwater, which cannot be practically separated from wastewater and domestic water.
So just to be clear, if I make that change there, does that address, may include, now reads may include condensing or cooling water and stormwater, which cannot be practically.
Yes.
Yep.
And if we can go down to Watercourse, which is LL, the explanation note, just want clarification where we're talking about a watercourse includes all rivers, streams and channels through which water flows. Are we talking about preferential flow channels that flow underneath the soil medium, or are we talking about overland flow paths and channels?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I could quickly look at that definition now if you were happy with me to do so.
We can come back to it, but it's just to clarify what the channels refers to. Right.
So Deborah, we'll let Mark confirm that, but it's my understanding that because it's under the Land Drainage Act, it will be channels as in surface water channels. So
It just says channels, but I think for clarity, it probably needs the word surface channels or overflow channels, over pathway channels. Or is it intended to be underground channels as well? Okay.
Sorry. So the Land Drainage Act definition doesn't make any distinction between above and below ground channels.
Okay.
So so as it stands, the definition of watercourse refers to the definition in the Land Drainage Act, and that act defines watercourses as all rivers, streams, and channels through which water flows, and there's no distinction in that definition between above and below ground channels.
Okay, thank you. So it says stands. Have you got anything else under section 5?
No.
Okay. So then we'll go to section 6, use, construction and alteration of the stormwater and drainage network. 6.1. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. And then we've got 6.2, which is acceptance of discharge. Oh, sorry, I'll clarify. Acceptance of section 6. Section 6.2 is acceptance of discharge. We've got A, B, B1, B2, B3. Then we've got C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. Have you got any?
I guess
Okay.
this might be where an interesting point would be from the submitter that potentially we could clear something up, and under E it just says all existing premises assessed would be required to apply for an approval of discharge, and so I think we talked about potentially having an example of what that would look like from the hearing this morning. And are you able to tell me what is appropriate treatment? So point C.
Refer to you on that, I think.
So we've got an example of so if a property on the land drainage network was deemed to present a high or medium risk to water quality, they could be asked by council to apply for an approval to discharge to the network and provide us with a drainage management plan. So the idea of the drainage management plan is it outlines how the risk to water quality could be managed, and it could, for example, include adding treatment or doing some source control. It could be things like sort of bunding any stockpiles that are on site. So yeah, there's a few different examples. And just in terms of what a medium risk site could be, it could be something like a construction depot or a demolition yard or an engineering workshop. So more sort of from the stormwater side of things. But obviously it could apply in the land drainage network as well, in terms of any stockpiles on site, that type of thing.
Okay.
My question is in relation to G. It's in the explanatory note under G, which is the provision of a stormwater drainage and watercourse management plan or equivalent if required by council. And it's got in the explanatory note is some councils' resource consents require a farm environmental management plan to be provided by property owners to discharge to the council land drainage network under the consent. This clause 6.2G makes approval to discharge conditional on provision of these plans. With regards to farm environmental management plans, they're only required for normally dairying or dairy support over 20 hectares, or if you're in the vicinity of the Te Waihora management area, 10 hectares. So I'm just wondering, can you actually, is it therefore appropriate to ask for farm environmental management plans, because a lot of farmers will not have them?
Thanks for the question, Deborah. So, so the intent of this explanatory note is to say that council, if there is a requirement under another mechanism, like a resource consent, to provide a plan, council won't be asking for a different plan. So that explanatory note is basically saying that the drainage and stormwater management plan or farm environmental plan can be used interchangeably to achieve the same outcome. So some of the resource consents are coming through saying that farm environment plans are needed to discharge under the consent, but I do acknowledge your point that not all properties need a farm environment plan.
Yes, you can ask a question.
I'd just like to clarify around people providing their FEPs to council. Is it the whole FEP that council would require to have oversight over, or is it actually just the specific components of that FEP that they would have to give to council?
We would really be interested in the sections that relate to water quality.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I agree. Yep, I'm happy.
If that's the case, could we actually clarify it in the explanation note that it's not the whole FMP that's required, it's only the relevant sections?
If I added the words or relevant part thereof, would that help? So if you can see it, I'm on the screen now. Would those words help, councillor?
So that's the,
So just under G.
or relevant plan,
Make it bigger.
or relevant parts period, oh, sorry. Struggling to read the blue, actually, discharge these plans or. Yes, no, that should cover it.
I'm happy.
Thank you. So we've got 6.3, 6.4, 6.5. Anything on 6.6,
No,
6.7, 6.8, 6.9, 6.10, 6.11, 6.12, 6.13, design.
I've got something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd just like to clarify with 6.13, the design, and just noting all the, what do you want to call them? The management plans, the codes of practice, the policies that are listed in there. And I think it might be important just to put the narrative around why that's included in there now. Because if you look at it from the outside, to me it looks like a real double up of regional council, but my understanding is this is provisional for the future.
Thanks. So the intent of this section is to just acknowledge the other places where design criteria might be set out. So I think, yeah, the bylaw has been developed in anticipation of our network discharge consents for stormwater coming out. But yeah, so the purpose of this section is to acknowledge the other things that might influence somebody's decisions on what treatment is required.
And I do just note the existence or the words, if applicable, there. But we could put an explanatory note if you wanted to expand that.
I personally think that would be helpful because we're actually talking about, a private stormwater, and when we're talking about a drainage system, is that a private drainage system? Does that include a private drainage system as well, or is it? Because the drainage system does include the private. And we're just trying to clarify, I guess, at the end of the day, what is required for private drains on private property that aren't part of a designated network.
Do you want to talk to that, Joe? I don't think we've got anything to add on that, but I wondered if we could use this opportunity just to make the explanatory note clarify the fact that the above requirements only apply to the extent applicable. You know, to the extent there's a requirement elsewhere for those plans, they would be expected to be provided in the course of
Right.
applying for consent.
Sorry.
There's a note
A note.
just here that's different to what we have. Yeah.
Oh, okay. If I can be of assistance, the reason why I've asked for that under 613 is if we go over to the page, we've got erosion and sediment control, and that's also asking basically a sediment plan, the risk of sediment generation. So there's the sediment plan and the farm environmental management plan again. And I just wanted to highlight under 6117 that not all land drainage on private property is cleaned by a contractor. And when a contractor comes on, it's quite often the health and safety of the farm that it more or less complies with. And you'll find that they will not have a sediment and erosion control plan. The main reason, I guess, is to just manage the internal drains that will connect to a designated drain internally, but just to remove the weed so that they're functioning. And I just read this as I'm just questioning whether this is the intention of actually asking every contractor that comes onto a farm for a land drainage or a private stormwater that they actually provide these plans. Is that the intention?
So, so any activity that can generate sediment into the network, what we would like is for people to actually do some planning and actually put some thought into how they could minimise the effects. So the explanatory note is around saying that those plans can be scalable. So if it's a small scale activity that's not going to generate sediment into our network, then there doesn't need to be a plan. But if it will generate sediment and affect the network, then do some planning to mitigate the effects. That's what that's.
Okay,
trying to
look,
achieve.
really appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so that's all 6.14, 6.15. Then we got 6.16, which is the stormwater and drainage management devices. 6.17, I think we've cross-referenced that with the extent that we actually need a plan, because it says shall at their sole costs.
Sorry, Deborah, could we just pause 1 minute briefly? Just we'll get this explanation note
Okay, yeah.
sorted, sorry.
Sorry, just to just picking up on the point before the explanatory note. My understanding is we just want to clarify. We've got the words "if applicable" in the first part of the clause, and we're just putting an explanatory note at the bottom just to really underline that point. So I'm proposing the following words: the council will only need to review or consider the above consents and regimes, because that list has got both types of consents and also regimes such as the freshwater fisheries regulations. So that's a catch-all. And I was going to just say, to the extent relevant, in the context of the proposed private, I would say in the context of the proposed private stormwater and drainage system. I'm just wondering if that sufficiently underlines the point.
I'm happy with that.
You happy with that?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's fine, thank you. So that's the new M.
Yep.
6.14, 6.15, stormwater drainage management devices, 6.16. I think we've covered 6.17 with the...
Could I just ask a question?
Yes.
On that? Could I just ask a question on 6.17? The erosion management plans or sediment control plans, don't we have a standard operating procedure for the cleaning of the drains? Is that adequate to feed into that, or are you looking for something entirely new?
So, so council is in the process of developing a new standard operating procedure for drain maintenance, and we're doing that alongside our partners and T Committee Waiora. So that will cover the council cleaning of waterways, but the erosion, I mean, everybody should be doing good erosion and sediment control best practice, and ECAN have got a toolkit, and lots of information that's available online. So this clause of the bylaw is intended to, capture builders and other people that are out operating in the network as well.
Okay, very good. Please tell me if this is out of scope. But those standard operating procedures, would you share those with private landowners for best practice?
We absolutely could, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
6.18 Stormwater Drainage Watercourse Management Plan. Any questions?
No, I'm good on that. Yep.
7, Protection of Public Stormwater and Drainage Network. 7.1, Prohibited Activities. I had a question around 7.1a. Because you've added from the previous bylaw the word chemical as a prohibited activity, if I cross-reference that to section 7.2h, which is over the page, no person without approval excavate or no person without approval discharge, construction, dewatering water or swimming pool water such that it enters the public stormwater and drainage system, or no person may without approval construct or locate any temporary or permanent structure which may impede drainage. The setback distances are allowed in the Building Act. Just want clarification with the word chemical being added in regards to swimming pools. What takes precedent, the prohibited activity, because swimming pools will have chlorine and may have other chemicals in them, or the fact that we actually, no person without approval may prefer to do that. So just want to clarify, is it better that for swimming pool or some of these that prohibited that swimming pool and that, stays within restricted activities, but we clarify the cross-referencing by using the word chemical and prohibited?
Thanks for the question, Deborah. So, so the intent of these two sections is that not all swimming pool water potentially has chemicals in it. So the objective we're trying to achieve is the control of the discharge of chemicals to the stormwater network or to surface water and groundwater where it could have effects. So the way it's written at the moment is that without approval you cannot discharge swimming pool water to the network. That allows an opportunity for an assessment to be made about the risk, whether there are chemicals or anything else, and whether the network could take the volume, for example. So, so typically council would encourage landowners to discharge their swimming pool water via the wastewater system. We've got some information available on our website about how that's typically done. And yeah, just to say, obviously, case by case basis, depending on level of risk and what's in the water.
Okay. And right, we'll go to 7.2, restricted activities. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. I've got a question with G. No person without approval excavate or remove or add additional covering material, including vegetation and soil or soil within, my copy actually says 5 metres of any part of the public stormwater and land drainage system, or the drainage system. Is the 5 metres correct, or I note that you've got on your copy 1 metre?
Thanks, Deborah. So thanks for picking that up. So the original draft bylaw that went out to our partners had 5 metres, and then following discussion, we agreed that 1 metre was probably more appropriate. So the version that we've got up on the screen is 1 metre. So if you're both comfortable with that, that's what I would recommend we proceed with.
In relation to that, can I cross-reference that 1 metre through to section 9.3, which is the depositing of soil, so as not to cause a nuisance? Is it appropriate that when we're looking at within 1 metre, can we actually have an explanatory note that the 1 metre cross-references to 9.3 so as not to cause a nuisance? Is that appropriate?
Thanks. I'm just checking the screen. We do have a note already below, advice note. When the watercourse is mechanically cleaned by council or private property owner, it is best practice to deposit channel cleanings a minimum of 1 metre from the top of the channel bank to reduce the risk of sediment washing back into the watercourse. Yeah. So does that provide
So
enough?
yeah,
of a
you might just
cross-reference?
need to give us a minute because we don't have these notes
No, we don't.
on our
No, so
screen,
that-
and I just
we're-
note
no.
back to G.
Apologies.
We don't have the note under G either.
So are you able to read that on the screen?
So we've got, if we go to 9.3, we've got that when a watercourse, if mechanically cleaned by council or private owner, best practice, the 1 metre's been added into that
Yep.
advice notice. Thank you for
Yep.
that cross-reference clarification.
Thank you.
Right, 7.3, water monitoring.
Can we just go back to G?
Sorry, G.
And 7.2, I just note that there was a note below that I don't have on my copy.
No, I don't have it either.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yep.
Yep. That's great.
You happy with that?
Yep. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. 7.3, water quality monitoring.
That's good.
7.4, buried services and works in proximity to systems. 8, obstructions to the stormwater and drainage network. 8.1, restricted activities. Then we'll go to 9, responsibility for private stormwater and drainage systems. 9.1, maintenance. I have a question. It's 9.1 and it's sections 2 and 3, and it's in reference to if a private stormwater or drainage system is located within a road or a reserve, the owner, occupier or manager of the premises which is contiguous to that road or reserve, or if the private stormwater and drainage system is located on or about the common boundary between land and different ownership, the owners of the land in equal shares. I just seek some clarification on that scenario, and I will bring back to where you've got a landowner, a rural landowner who may have a large block of land and it bounds to a road and there's a drain in between or a watercourse in between, but they have no direct access to that road. Their portion of the land is on their, between the drain and their land is their responsibility. Is it the council's responsibility and a designated drain to actually manage that between the watercourse and the road? Just trying to clarify that ownership, because this is an issue that quite often arises in the rural area.
No, acknowledge your point. I think this only deals with private stormwater and drainage systems. And essentially it's saying if it's on your land, you're responsible for it. If it's contiguous with your land, and on the other side is a road, which probably the council will be responsible for it. You're still responsible for it. And then finally, if the private drain is between two pieces of land, the adjoining owners rather are responsible for it in equal shares. So, yeah, like I say, it doesn't really place any obligation on the council. And in fact, I'm sure too is intended to ensure that the council isn't responsible for a private drain where it owns the adjoining road.
Even if there's no access from that landowner across.
Yes, well, I mean,
The road?
I acknowledge that sometimes practically there may be no access, but if the landowner's land is contiguous, it's got to be right up to it. So,
Okay.
you would normally think they would have access. But I know life's not always like that. So.
No, it's not. I just wanted some clarification on that one. 9.2, maintenance of stormwater and drainage management devices. 9.3, I think we've clarified with the deposition of the spoil. 9.7, discharging into neighbouring properties. 10, removal of a redundant private stormwater and drainage system. Points of 11, points of discharge. We've got location of council vested assets, 11.2, boundary of responsibility. We've got 11.3, single premises. We've got a diagram of a single premise point of discharge. And thanks for the diagrams, they're really helpful. 11.4, multiple premises. And then 11.5, public drain on private property. We did have a submission this morning that wanted clarification with regards to the secondary dwelling, and they wanted to understand how that would work and how our current second dwellings going to be treated. I just want clarification from in that submission that these diagrams provide the answer.
So I can confirm that the new bylaw doesn't change how additional dwellings are dealt with and how these properties are managed. So we have got the standard drawings in there about how multiple premises can be connected to the stormwater network, and that detail's not changed at all. The changes of the bylaw are really around how we manage, identify and manage risk. And properties that are seeking to add minor dwellings typically we wouldn't expect them to trigger the medium and high risk categories of the risk assessment that are changed under the bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Have you got a question?
No, I just know on my copy under figure 3, I think I have a double up of imagery.
Figure 3, yeah. It's a public drain on private
Oh,
property.
yeah, okay, cool. You don't have a double up, so that's,
I don't have a double up, so.
yeah, cool, okay.
So 12, 12, other requirements. 13, bylaw administration. 14, fees and charges. And these are shown on the council website. Breaches and remedies, section 15. 15.2, enforcement. 16, penalties. 17, exceptions. Then we turn and we have the first schedule, enforcement powers and related legislation. Got the Local Government Act 1974, Subpart 2 of the Local Government Act 2002. We've got Subpart 3 of the Local Government Act. We've got the Health Act, 1956, and we've got the Land Drainage Act 1908. And then we have a second schedule. Stormwater discharge risk criteria. Have you got any questions, Tradeways?
Yeah, so I would just like clarification on why food and beverage premises are located under medium risk. In my experience and view, actually that is more under wastewater conditions and not stormwater, or obviously not land drainage, but yeah, I don't think that most food and beverage premises are discharging into the stormwater network.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Lydia. Having another look at that, the intent of that, I think, was actually to cover off on the additional risk for food and beverage manufacturers rather than sort of retail outlet premises. So, and the rationale behind including manufacturers in medium risk is just if there was any spillages or anything dropped on site that could enter the stormwater network, having them as medium risk just means that they would have to have done some planning in case there was a spill or something like that, so they had some mechanisms in place to manage the risk. So my proposal would be to change that to manufacturers, but happy to take feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that makes it a lot clearer around premise to me as a site where you would go to buy something, but manufacturer is a very different operation to a premise. All right, I can understand manufacturers.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
happy with that?
Yeah, I think. Would you be okay? I'm okay with
Yep,
that.
no, yep.
I just have a
No
couple of questions.
Yeah.
I think just from this morning, I think I'd like to just clarify a couple of things that happened in the hearing from the submitter. And, for the example was that a standard user of stormwater could be have their discharge revoked. And I just wanted to understand that a little bit more of how that could actually happen.
How we're expecting this to roll out is that staff would do an assessment of all the high and medium risk sites across the district, and then would do it on a risk basis, would approach the high risk users to start the process of, if they're already connected, to start the process of them developing some plans and understanding what risk their site presents to the stormwater network. So we're anticipating that would be a rollout on a sort of risk basis, and it would be gradual over time. So the ability under the bylaw to revoke an approval to discharge, there would be several steps in place before that would happen, including working collaboratively with them and taking an educational approach and that type of approach. So revoking a discharge approval wouldn't be taken lightly, and there would definitely be a sort of a runway into that in terms of education and working collaboratively.
Do you have an idea of how many high and medium risk entities or premise or place that we have?
We haven't done the
dealing with?
assessment at this stage.
Okay. And I think the other thing I wanted to say was thank you for the information that I'd requested sort of at the front end of this bylaw. So for me, I haven't seen this bylaw until it came to the council table, but for others on our land drainage committee, they have had input into the front end of this, and I think that that's a really great way to do this when you're creating a new bylaw that affects people, and acknowledging that you've also sent information and questions from ESAI and that other stakeholders have received this and had this for information and chosen not to submit on it. So thank you.
I just have one question in relation to the second schedule. and the risk criteria. It was actually mentioned by a submitter this morning about plastic waste being ground up and actually used as a landscaping material that has the ability to be washed into the stormwater systems. How best do we deal with that? Do we actually discourage it under the bylaw, or is it through education? And what effect could that have in causing blockages?
I agree that an educational approach would probably be most appropriate, and council, for example, can use our engineering code of practice to put in some principles for when infrastructure is being built on behalf of council to limit the use of plastic products adjacent to waterways. So that's definitely something we can look at introducing. But yeah, generally getting people on board with understanding what the consequences of some of the decisions they may not be aware of would probably be a good first step. My personal view is I'm not sure we need an enforcement tool for that at this stage, but we could look at that in the future.
Okay, so given that this bylaw is proposed to be reviewed in 2 years' time, you're suggesting that that criteria be available for public consultation in 2 years' time? Is that what you're suggesting? Or would it be prevalent to actually put an explanatory note highlighting in this bylaw an educational process, just to highlight for anybody reading the Tradeways bylaw and highlighting to them about plastics or other material used for landscaping that has the opportunity to actually enter our stormwaters?
Sure. I think the bylaw actually gives us already the powers to prevent contamination to the network, so the powers are already in the bylaw. But we could look at adding an advice note if we think it's going to be helpful around the use of plastic products where it may enter water. We can find an appropriate place for that.
Okay. Given that it was part of a submission this morning, I'd appreciate if we could actually make a note for future reference for the update of or review of the bylaw, how this is planned to be dealt with in the interim through education. Appreciate that.
Great, thanks. I think Mark's capturing that now. Thank you.
Okay. I'll let Mark type that.
I suppose just to add, if there's a site which is manufacturing plastic products, then they'll be coming under one of those risk categories, which will then require a stormwater management plan to be prepared, which will then outline how those sort of risks are being managed.
Thank you. Right. Do you want to go through Mark's comments with the submissions, or we'll just take it as read?
I think we're just taking this read.
With regards to the legal advice given through to the submissions, I'm just going to take them as read. And thank you for being available to answer our questions in relation to the bylaw today. Very much appreciated. And I'll give staff, are there any other comments that you would like to make in regards to the bylaw that we may need to add given those submissions?
Thanks for the opportunity, Deborah. We do have a change to the resolution that is being proposed. I don't know if we're able to get that up on screen.
That's the recommendation to council.
Yes, that's right. I can read it out.
Okay, thank you.
So the recommendation in the report is that the subcommittee receives the report.
Hang on, that the council receives the report or a subcommittee, because it's my understanding that only the council can make a bylaw, adopt a bylaw.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Sorry. Apologies.
So,
yep. Council.
I stand to be corrected, but that's my understanding under the Local Government Act. So I think the council this is going to council, so this will be appropriate.
Yeah, so there'll be an additional report which will go to council specifically for the adoption of the bylaw. So this is just for this committee to provide a recommendation to council to approve the bylaw.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's actually the hearing panel. It's not it won't be a subcommittee. It's this panel. So it's the hearing panel. That the council hearing.
The panel receives the report as we've presented and receives the 5 submissions to the Stormwater Drainage and Watercourse Bylaw consultation, and that the panel recommends to council that they adopt the Stormwater Bylaw as amended through the deliberations process. So if you're comfortable with that additional recommendation.
Quite happy with that? Okay.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Sorry?
We'll just need a mover and seconder.
Okay, well, I'll move that recommendation. All in favour say aye. Carried. And I think that actually ends our panel discussion with regards to this the stormwater and drainage bylaw. I'd like to thank all of those on staff all of those online, who have listened in, and I'd like to thank the submitters for their submissions that we have duly considered. So I will close with the karakia. Uni here, tipo, tipo, kawatia, kawatia, e kua watia. And thank you very much for